Yeah, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And in this presentation, I would like to talk about new ways to manage chronic patients and especially heart failure patients via the support and help of telehealth. And I'm very thankful to Dr. van Beer, who already gave a nice introduction into telehealth systems. And what we did, because we are research, we had a really new an approach where we first looked into what are the needs in today's telehealth systems. We talked to doctors, we talked to patients, to their families, to find out what are the needs. Then we developed solutions that were based on these needs and that addressed these needs. And finally, these solutions were validated in clinical studies. What is now the best solution for heart failure patients? They want to stay in their home. I think this is for sure. And heart failure patients can stay in their home as long as they have stable conditions and are able to follow their treatment plan. The problem is, because heart failure is a very complex disease, that the worsening of the health status of such patients, if it is not detected in time, leads to hospitalization. And this is something you would like to avoid. This is good for the patient, and this is also good for our healthcare system. So, if you can now use a telehealth system where you have daily feedback about the health status of the patient, and you are able to detect a worsening so early in time that the treating physician can react, change medication, then you can avoid the hospitalization. And this is what we were trying to do. And here we had a specific tool. We created a large European project, so it's about research. And the goal was to develop innovative concepts and tools already for the next generation of telehealth systems, to be able to have a better patient engagement, to bring him in a more active role, and to also, and this was also mentioned as an important aspect from Dr. De Beer, that patient self-management is a very, very important topic for the futures. And we developed solutions for this, which I will show, and the final validation of the innovations have been, this is a must that you validate them in clinical studies in order to show the improved outcome and the benefits of the solutions to the medical experts, but also to the stakeholders. Now let's go to the HeartCycle project. So HeartCycle was one of the largest integrated projects in the 7th Framework Program of the European Commission. And the title was Compliance and Effectiveness in Heart Failure and Coronary Artery Disease Closed Loop Management. It's a very long title and also very complex. But of course, you can see from this that we were addressing several patient groups. We were addressing heart failure patients, which are chronic patients, but at the same time, we were also providing solutions in cardiac rehabilitation for patients after a heart attack when they were sent back to home, and this is the coronary artery disease. We had here some facts and figures. We started in March 2008. The duration was 66 months. In the beginning, it was planned 48 months, but due to some delays in the clinical studies, we extended to 66 months. You see, we had overall in Europe 25 different partners, and they were from economics, from universities, but many of them were also from clinical sites. And the total funding was about 22 million euros, and the funding was 14 euros. And we as Philips, we were coordinating this project. The two biggest medical companies involved in this project were, as I said, Philips and Medtronic, both very prominent companies in the field of patient monitoring. And the aim was, of course, to provide clinical proof for solutions, to have a more efficient workflow for professionals. And this is really decision support, which was also mentioned. And this is, And this is really about, if you supervise, if you look after patients in their homes, and you are able to generate, with the help of intelligent algorithms, alarm and alert detection, and also provide decision support and tell a nurse who is sitting in the hospital what she should do in case of a specific alarm, this would be, I think, a next step to go on. And we would also looking into patient empowerment, and for this, with the closed loop system, we also created a patient loop, because the standard of the loops is that you have a patient which is sending data to the medical professionals and get some feedback. But we have also filled in here a kind of patient loop that was directly interacting, the system was interacting with the patient in the home to directly give also decision support to him. And also trying, and the goal was to get the patient to manage their own illness with light medical support only, and also to personalize care, and I will come to this. What was also very important for us was to identify unmet needs, and these are today still maximized use of guideline-based therapy and also to optimize the use of medication. It is nice if patients take the right medication, but if they do not take it at the right dosage, then you also have sometimes problems. And for this we used technologies like managing algorithms, decision support algorithms, smart closes, innovative sensors, on-body electronics, and also patient devices and a professional platform. Here you see the medical experts that were involved in HeartCycle, because it was very important, and it was mentioned in the last talk, how important the cooperation with medical experts is to make sure and to guarantee that all the application aspects are based on clinical excellence and medical expert knowledge. We had, let's say, and this is where we were really proud of, we had, for example, Professor John Cleland, who is a key opinion leader for telemonitoring in Europe. He's a former chairman of the European Society of Cardiology. With the same level at the European Society of Cardiology is also Professor Tini Jasma, but more in the field of education and coaching. And we had several clinics and, let's say, high-reputed cardiologists that are interested in telehealth, that have experience in telehealth. For example, University of Heidelberg, Professor Zuck, and University Clinic in Aachen, Professor Schauerte, who were contributing to this project. So you see we had a nice pool of medical knowledge to make sure our solutions really make sense and address the needs we identified. HeartCycle was a big project, and therefore we had 3 different patient groups where we provided solutions on. And all these solutions were really developed based on insights from interviews and cooperation with medical professionals and patients. So in the beginning, we were creating workshops and we were creating, let's say, interview scenarios to really find out what if people who are already using telehealth, what do they like, what do they not like, where do they see a need, and we tried to bring this together. And the first use case was heart failure management, as I already mentioned, and this was about to provide services to support chronic patients, long-term at home, to provide more personalized medication management, to provide education and even automated coaching, and to support patients that they could be more compliant to their treatment plan. For the second use case was guided exercise, and this was for patients after heart attack when they are sent back from rehabilitation to home. Then they are left alone, but they should still go and exercise, and this is where we supported them with a cardiac rehabilitation using a wearable heart rate and breathing monitor and a closed loop system where professionals could tailor. They saw the data during exercise, and based on this, they could adjust the training plan. And the third one was the assessment use case, how we called it. This was a little bit more explorative, looking more into the future. This was about innovative sensors and data mining. So we have developed sensors that could measure the fluid content in the lung by the patients themselves in the home, or that you can measure cardiac output by the patients themselves in the home. So this would be new information which might be important for the future. And we wanted to increase patient compliance and understanding of their condition because we then were showing them the visualization of the treatment effects. We were giving feedback them that what they are currently doing is doing them well and is going well. And we also try to detect whether they have taken their medications from vital sign readings. Here in a nutshell, the innovations that we provided in HeartCycle for the heart failure management use case 1. So the question was, can we use a telehealth system to provide medication titration services? Or can we also use a telehealth system to provide diuretic management? These are both medications. how well is the decision support for patients and professionals ongoing, and education and coaching for patient self-management via telehealth? Is this possible also in an automated way? And we had a very nice concept which is called here health maintenance. This was more trying with the help of telehealth to keep the patients in a green zone with respect to their vital signs and their symptoms, and not to just detect when they are close to the cliff, where they are shortly before a hospitalization. This is a completely different approach which takes care and tries to manage patients that they are, let's say, healthy. This is really health care. For guided exercise, it was about that patients don't feel comfortable when they have to exercise without medical supervision. They are not very trustful, and we wanted to improve independence and compliance, that they are doing their training, that they feel safe and confident, and that we want to have an improved treatment delivery because we were giving feedback and adjusted their training plans to the, let's say, best possible output. For the assessment use case, so novel sensors to enhance the patient assessment in the home environment, new information processing for integration and interpretation of sensor and patient data. So these were really new concepts of data mining, new technologies, which we tried out. And what is, I think, something also for the future is really to look at the personal hemodynamic profile of patients with the help of some of our sensors. And I think there's a lot of information in it, how medication is working for this specific patient. Because we had 3 different use cases, we also had to provide 3 clinical studies. And you see here for heart failure management, we have included 125 patients at 3 clinical sites. They were in Spain, in UK, and in Germany for 1 year. And this was a pre-market clinical study. And for guided exercise, we had 120 patients, 3 clinical sites, also in Spain, UK, and Germany, duration 6 months, and also a pre-market clinical study. And for the assessment use case, 20 patients, 2 clinical sites, and 3 months. But this was more clinical and concept validation. And therefore, we only needed approval of, let's say, ethics approval for the 2 countries. Whereas the pre-market clinical studies really require that you also get approval by competent authorities. And because we are here, and it was already mentioned, we are here in the field of medical products, you more or less have to also develop your prototypes to a maturity level which is very close to a medical product. And therefore, was this a lot of work? Yes, this was a hell of work to provide all the documents, all, let's say, the testing, all the, let's say, security aspects, to convince competent authorities and ethics committees to give the okay that we are able to run these trials. And this took us, let's say, more than 1 year. And this is especially a challenge for a research project, of course. Because the time of this presentation is limited, and this was really, we have seen 66 months, I can only concentrate on one of the use cases, and I will now present some results from the heart failure management. Here you see the system that every of the 125 patients had installed in their homes. We already saw it. You have some measurement devices like weight scale and blood pressure meter. They are sending wireless to a set-top box where the data are then transferred to a back end. The patient is interacting with the system via a HeartCycle health channel, how we call this. And this was a special health channel that was seen at the TV of the patient, but you can also foresee it, you can bring it on a tablet. But the TV is nice because it's already existing in most of the patients. And via this TV, he was then interacting, and the patient received education and coaching. He was informed about medication changes, lab reminders, and all the monitoring data, and he could fill in his symptom questionnaires. And all the information that was collected here was sent to the back end, where we had processing and analysis, and a lot of these new intelligent algorithms. And on the professional side, here also in a hospital, we had the treating nurse who is taking care of the group of patients. And they receive, as an output from the processing and analysis, of course, recommendations what to do with specific patients, identify patients that need immediate help, and also some of the actions that were needed to be done with patients. Here you see the 3 clinical sites. We had Hull, Barcelona, which is close to Barcelona, and Heidelberg. And even all the nurses at these 3 clinical sites have already experience with telehealth. They needed, of course, technical training, and this took place in November 2011. Then we had investigator meetings, we had site initiation meetings, and the first patient was involved on January 2012 in Hull, and in April 2012 in Barcelona and in Heidelberg. And the clinical study was carried out, and we are very proud of this because we had no technical problems in all the time and was running from January till July 2013. And patient satisfaction and also how they used the system was quite high. So therefore, the data we collected are, let's say, quite interesting. And here I want to shortly show you what the patients had to do during this 1 year where they were, let's say, in the study. The protocol defined 4 phases, where the patients were then running from phase A, then B, C, and finally in D. And in the first phase, it was about titration. And the objective was to assess the ability of the system to support titration of life-saving medications safely and effectively. And titration, because we don't have so many doctors here, means that you have a guideline-based target dose of this medication, so how much the patients should take. And you start, of course, with a much lower value, and then after 2 weeks you should increase then that's the dosage. If everything goes fine, then after the next 2 weeks you should also increase it. But this is a controlled process following the guidelines. But this is not working in daily life so far, but I will come to this later. So this is what we try to explore in the first 1 to 4 months, depending on how long it has taken to stabilize a patient. Then, if patients were stable, this was about diuretics management, so assess the ability of the system to guide reduction in diuretic doses safely in patients whose symptoms are well controlled. Here, want to lower it and to increase them in patients who could not be stabilized, and then to find the optimal diuretic dosage. So this is really a kind of individualization of, let's say, patients. Sorry, phase C was quite funny. This was about personalization, and it tried to find out how aspects of everyday life modify vital signs. So because we say we receive every day readings from blood pressure, from weight, and also symptom questionnaires, but is there a difference if a patient takes his medication before the meal or after the meal, if it's hot outside, if he's following a salt diet or not? Nobody so far has ever looked into what are the consequences of what the patient is doing in his home with respect to the vital signs we are monitoring, and the study looked into this. And the phase D was health maintenance. This was really the proportion of time that the system can patients in the ideal range. So this means this was the green zone I was already talking about, and this is a very nice and interesting concept for the future. So now let's go to the results from the study. Let's say we finished the study, and then we analyzed the data, and our medical experts, they provided for the European Society of Cardiology, maybe I have to say it here, they presented all the results from heart failure management at the European Society of Cardiology meeting in May 2014, so it's quite fresh, therefore it's also not, the next slides could not be made available before. And if we now look at the results from phase A, here the problem is, this was about the titration, and the problem is that the treatment is very effective for heart failure patients, but only if you get to the dose that the guideline recommends. But this means that you have to increase it by the time, and you have to check, and this process is not working in daily life. So many patients do not get to their optimal dose. And whether this is because the implementation of this update is so complicated, or whether patients have side effects, this now can be explored with the help of a telehealth system. And here, with the help of the telehealth system, where you have daily feedback, we could show, let's say, that the optimal dose for patients sometimes is different. So medical experts say they should not get to the guideline dose. And we could also find out what is the reason if they were not getting to a specific dose. And finally, let's say this is now more the language for the medicals, and therefore it's this is their language. Expert care plans devised for individual patients often target doses different from guidelines. Yeah. And the heart failure management algorithms may facilitate dose titration, but even individual care plan targets were often not met because we have sometimes difficulties and don't know whether this is side effects or adverse events. And this may reflect appropriate care in the light of changes in vital signs or clinical inertia. Ensuring that patients know what the therapeutic goals are might assist clinicians in achieving targets. So I think what can we learn from this? With the help of telehealth, we are able to titrate patients, if they know the target dose, to their target. Only, let's say, only this is not possible if they get side effects or adverse events, but then they have a lower dose. But finally, we end up in the individual dose, and I think this is very promising results. Phase B was about the diuretic management. Diuretics is not a life-saving medication. Diuretics are there to lower symptoms, so to drain water out of the body. Heart failure patients, let's say, collect water in their body if the heart is pumping, if the pumping function of the heart is not working well. And then they have to drain out the water. And this is a real burden in their daily life. And the standard today is that heart failure patients are dismissed from hospital with a fixed dose in diuretics, and this is reducing their quality of life. And in this phase B, we found out that we could reduce for 80% of the patients, we could reduce the diuretic dose to the minimum and still keep them stable, which is, I think, a very nice and also surprising effect. And this is a symptom and weight-based algorithm implemented through a home telemonitoring system, can safely explore and facilitate diuretic minimization in patients with adequately controlled symptoms. Many patients tolerated and preferred reduction in diuretic dose. So I think this also shows that with the help of some intelligence in the algorithm, and if you really try to personalize it, even with a big backend system, you can do it. For the phase C, this was this type of personalization. I will make it short. We finally found out that these daily life variations, whether you take medication before a meal or after a meal, does not have a lot of influence to the readings, which is of course reassuring, and that we can be confident in the readings we observe from the patients. And finally, we provided also an overall education and coaching program. And here, it is generally assumed that, let's say, if you want to improve self-care, to reduce readmission in patients, and with heart failure, the compliance is not very high. But with the help of an automated coaching, we could even show that we first could motivate patients to be closer to their care plan, but also there was even an increase in their knowledge, and they had knowledge before. So the official conclusion is the multi-center HeartCycle study showed that self-care adherence amongst patients with heart failure who have already received substantial conventional education was improved, and that the automated coaching was the likely mechanism for this improvement. If telehealth systems can take care of more routine coaching tasks, this liberates expert staff to focus their efforts on patients that require more personal attention. This is clearly a workflow improvement if you can provide standard coaching in an automated way. This really frees time for, let's say, the nurses. Next step is, of course, we have now successfully evaluated the innovations that we identified 5 years ago. And I can only talk for the Philips side, but after the clinical studies showed high potential of HeartCycle innovations, and we in Philips, we already have a running telehealth solution, which is now part of our first Philips hospital-to-home business. And essential parts from the results of the HeartCycle program are after successful clinical validation, now ready to be integrated into the future portfolio. And here, maybe a short introduction. What is the enterprise approach to care delivery? We have programs that are also running in the hospital. So here, for intensive care bed supervision via telehealth, let's say via telehealth. This is telemonitoring from a call center. We have management for acute patients and also consultation services. But at home, For the tailored ambulatory care, we have a special program for intensive ambulatory care, so for the very sick patients, and for chronic ambulatory care, so this is more for standard chronic patients, and also a specific program for enabling the transition from the hospital to the home in the best way. And part of this solution is also the Philips Motiva Telehealth. This is part of this of the solution in the programs we showed. And this is a system that manages heart failure patients in their homes, providing also education. And via this system, you can get feedback on goals. Patients can increase their knowledge via tailored videos. They can make health surveys, and they get timely reminders and goal settings. And you see in this scope, of course, all the algorithms and the next steps we provided can nicely fit in and will also be part of the portfolio very soon. So I hope in this presentation I could at least try to give you a small bit of the results from, it was, let's say, more than 80 people were working on this project for 5 years, so there's many, many things to report, but at least I could show you that there is still room to improve current telehealth systems, despite all the difficulties that were mentioned in the first talk, and I completely agree to this. But maybe, as we are research, we will also look forward and try to make it by personalizing care and then finally put the pressure so high that also, let's say, others have to agree that we need these nice solutions. At least future telehealth solutions provide support to patient education, empowerment, compliance improvement, and also advanced patient interaction. So the patient should be more active in his own care, and he should be more feeling responsible in his own care. Clinical studies like the HeartCycle program are examples on Philips' approaches to investigate and offer these evidence-based solutions, because you can see conducting 3 clinical studies and all the preparation time, this is a lot of time and also a lot of work, and I think European projects where a lot of people come together is a nice vehicle and a nice tool to do this. I do not know many companies who would finance such research completely on their own, because then you would have to pay for all the medical specialists, and then you would have to pay for all the economic specialists. And this, I think, nobody then would do it, and therefore, I really think we have proven the high potential, but such large projects will pave the way to improve patient self-management at home, actively include patients in their own care, and follow professionals to manage more patients in a more effective way. And this is something we want to show. Of course, we could also not include thousands or 10,000s of patients. We would like to do it, but of course, this economics of scale is not possible from our viewpoint. But at least we could show that the concepts are working, that there is more room in future telehealth applications. Yeah, and I hope at least I could create some of the interest that you will also look in future into this. Thank you.